Thanks, Tom. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Tony.
Happy birthday today.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Tally. Happy birthday to you.
Thanks. What we've done is, instead of giving a speech, we've asked people around the world what they think of when they think of my dad or any memories. So I'm just going to read a few. Don't worry, I'm not going through all of these pages. Alright, the first one's from your sister Elaine. Dear soul, 60 years plus, 4 days ago, a piece of gold was born to Sylvia and Benjamin. But for me, you were just a big brother. Someone, thank goodness they didn't light a fire under me. Saul knew that was not allowed. He had played with fire one too many times, nearly setting our house in Windhoek alight. As I taught me how to ride a bike, first lesson was to hold onto the handlebars and pedal, and then I was pushed down a hill. Holding on the bars for dear life and pedaling, but how was I to stop? Crash. Well, that detail was omitted. I suppose brakes were part of the second lesson. Then you were my driving instructor, a more calm, patient teacher one couldn't wish for. I don't think I watched the road in front of me at all as I was driving. I only stared in the mirror because I constantly asked, who's behind you? And boy, if you didn't know the answer, if you were going too fast, especially if it was the first time you were driving on a highway, you'd get a club. But one excellent lesson I did learn was, everyone on the road doesn't know how to drive, even if it's me, Sol, in the car next to you. Unfortunately, I didn't receive motorbike lessons, but I suppose you're still practicing that skill yourself. When Sol and his boyfriends played cowboys and Indians, they were about 6 and I was about 4 or 5, they needed a hostage so that they could go about doing their rejoice dancing and chanting. Well, I was that crying Indian girl who was tied to the pole with lots of string. I recall he said, I was only burning the garbage in the dustbin. I'm sure not many of you know that I had a career as a model. Sol decided to learn photography. He set up a darkroom studio in the outside storeroom. For quite a long time, he was majoring in portraits. So whether you wanted to or not, you had to pose for hours so that he could master the craft. Then he wanted to be a sound man. He organized speakers from the radio upstairs into all the bedrooms downstairs. That was great if you wanted to hear his music and programs all the time. I learned at an early age to eat your favorite chocolates first. Otherwise, you'd have to give them to a big brother who ate much faster than you did. So often I'd be doing my own thing, wandering around the house, minding my own business, when suddenly a loud boo would scare the shit out of me from behind a door or a corner. Sol would open the fridge door so many times and wham, a raw egg would be thrown at me with the comment, catch! Dear brother, I could go on and on. Living with you was a challenge to say the least. Nothing was predictable, but it sure was fun. I've been lucky that I've never doubted your unconditional and selfless love, which is abundant, and there's ample for all your growing family as well as for me. I love you so much. The Oxford Definitions Dictionary of brother is a male person having the same parents as another person. I believe we need to change that definition when it comes to defining you. Have a wonderful party, Elaine. The next one's from Tammy in America, your daughter. Everyone else?
Thanks for inviting.
While we cannot be there to celebrate in person, please know that we're picturing you in your Elvis costume and laughing all the way from Washington, D.C. I remember when I was driving to my first teaching crack in Joburg, a very important day for me, and my tyre burst. I called you freaking out, and there you were, changed my tyre faster than a NASCAR pit stop. Just a small example of always being there to support us. You've been a wonderful father and father-in-law, and a really fun hands-on grandpa. We're so glad you finally have grandsons to do all that boy stuff that you didn't get to do with us girls when growing up. We all love you so much, and even though we're far away, the distance feels very small as you're so much part of our lives. Okay, the next one is from your other sister, Sharon. Hi Sol, or Nom, as I usually call you. Here's wishing you the best brother in the world and a very happy 60th birthday. Hope you have many more and lots of good health and nachas from your family. I've been having a few recollections about you over the past. There's lots I don't remember, as I've also started having senior moments. About our early childhood, one thing comes to mind, and that is when we were riding horses in Bolleprol. Is that how you pronounce it? You took the leading horse. I asked you to keep the horse at a slow trot. Of course you said you would, but then you started galloping. I've never been so scared in my life. I didn't realize it, but then that was the beginning of you wanting to be in charge. When we went to Europe on our family trip, we fought over who was going to check everything in before our flights. Mommy told me to let you take over because as a young man, you must learn to do these things. You butched up once forgetting to order kosher food for me on a flight. But since then, Saul, I'm thankful that you do take over all that it has to do with our family dynamics. Mommy's nickname for you has been her piece of gold. It's true. In Cape Town, you always helped her, especially when she used to have a tough time with Cyril, and you did the big brother thing, and we all really appreciate you keeping that up now, even though that he isn't with us. His family know that they can turn to you whenever they feel in need. One more remembrance showing you as such a down-to-earth and no-nonsense person. We always knew where we stand with you. When we moved to Ocean View Drive, you slid down the banisters instead of going down the steps. Mommy used to shout at you, and you said calmly to her, I thought this house was for us to live in, not a bloody museum. That's you in a nutshell. That's from Toronto. Okay. And then this is from your ex-boss in Empangeni. He's got 2 stories he wants to share with everyone. Saul worked for me at the end of the 70s. Actually, he knew more than I did about the job, so I had to learn it from him. One of the things that I learned is that you never let the situation get on top of you. You should always be the captain of your ship, the master of your fate. The story I remember is when Saul was transferred from Cape Town to Empangeni. For those who don't know, Empangeni, at that stage, was the largest town in Zululand. It still only has a population of 10,000. The common saying was, Zululand is the backside of the world, and Empangeni is halfway up it. Saul and family travelled from Cape Town to Durban by train, sending their car ahead by rail. This meant that Saul had to get to the railways, goods yards, about 10 kilometres from the station to collect his car, and then return to the station where he'd left his family. Only Marilyn and Tammy at this stage, if I remember. He had arranged for one of his local colleagues to pick him up and take him to collect the car, but he forgot one small thing. It was the 2nd of January, a local public holiday, and when he arrived at the Bayhead goods yards, it was closed. This, however, did not deter Saul. He had to get his car and take his family the 160 kilometres to Empangeni before nightfall. Marilyn was sitting with the baby at the station all by herself. So he got Paul Gilioi to park his car next to the 2-metre-high maximum security wall around the goods yard and used it to climb over the wall. Paul told me later he heard Saul's voice a few minutes later from behind the wall asking if he had a hammer. When asked why he needed one, Saul replied, my car is still on the railway wagon at the loading bank and I can't get the doors open. Paul passed his hammer over the wall. A few minutes later he heard a tremendous banging. Remember that it was a public holiday and there was no one around except for the security guards. This was followed by a couple of loud crashes. Actually, the first one was Saul using the hammer to force the latches open on the wagon. The subsequent crashes were the sounds of the large steel doors of the wagon falling open onto the platform. No one responded to these sounds. A few minutes later, Saul pulled up next to him in his maroon Peugeot 504 station wagon. When asked how he managed to get out of the goods yards past security without papers, he said, as I approached the guardhouse, I hooted. The guard woke up from his daydreaming to see this haughty, imperious-looking gentleman hooting at him, so he automatically pressed the button and opened the gates without further thought before he got shouted at. This may seem an insignificant story, but the final twist was that 3 months later, Saul got a letter from the railway goods yard supervisor saying that unless he collects his car within 7 days, they would sell it to very expensive. Since he had never signed the paperwork to clear it, they obviously still thought they had it. I think they're still looking for it. One thing about Zululand is that it's on the fringe of some of really wild Africa. There were 3 major game reserves close by, and most of the area was still undeveloped communal lands that were wildly vegetated and populated with a great variety of wildlife, rhinos, lions, antelope, zebra, and snake of every description. Lethal mambas, pretty but dangerous, gaboon adders, boomslangs, etc. Boomslangs.